Session 25, Building Superior Relationships.
One of the oldest cliches is that be it ever so humble, there's no place like home. Benjamin Disraeli, the great Prime Minister of England, once said that no success in public life can compensate for failure in the home. And when we started this seminar several sessions ago, we talked about the importance of the power of love, and that how you and I as human beings are love-tropic organisms, that everything that we do is either to get love or to compensate for the lack of love. And there's no place where this is more important than in the quality of the intimate relationships that we form with other people. In fact, one of the measures of mental health, according to Abraham Maslow, is your ability to enter into long-term, intimate, loving relationships with other members of the human race. And I want to talk in this session about some of the things that might help you, which have helped me to enjoy a higher quality of loving relationships with your mate or your spouse or the person that is most important to you. First of all, let's talk about the idea of what makes a relationship successful. And I think that there are 6 keys that make a relationship successful. 6 keys to successful relationships. Let me explain them to you one at a time. Number 1 is, of course, similarities attract. Similarities attract. Similarities attract in almost all areas, but especially in the areas of values, in the areas of attitudes toward the critical things like children, like money. Do you know that? And like sex. For instance, that arguments over money are not one of the number 1 reasons why marriages break down, young marriages break down, and probably older marriages too. Arguments over sex are number 2. Arguments over leisure time, what we're going to do when we're not working, are the number 3 reason why relationships break down. So similarities are very, very important. It's sort of like when you meet the person who is right for you, there will be a chemistry. They call it a right chemistry. It feels good. It feels right because you will be in accord or in harmony on almost all of the critical areas of life. We find that virtually all of your difficulties come is when you from clashing with people who have different opinions and ideas from you. Now, with regard to similarities, the most important part of you as a human being is your self-concept, your central belief system. And your central belief system with regard to your relationship to the world is summarized in your values. What you think is right, what you think is wrong, what you think is good, what you think is unacceptable. Your values are very important, and any clash with your values in life will be destructive to your mental health. Outside your values, you have your mental life. These are your ideas, they may be your political opinions, they may have to do with philosophy and so on. They're not as important as your values because they change far more readily. Outside that, you have your emotional life or your emotional temperament. You'll find that people with similar emotional temperaments seem to get along the best. And finally, on the outer ring, the least important is the physical. Is the physical attraction or physical similarity or physical comparisons. However, there's a lot of research that shows that people tend to marry people who look very similar to themselves. That the highest form of flattery is marriage. That we tend to be attracted to people who have facial features very similar to our own. That's why they say when people grow older, they start to look like each other. Well, if they examine the wedding photographs, they find that they started off looking like each other, and that's why they look like each other more when they grow older. Number 2 key to successful relationships is that opposites attract. Opposites attract. But opposites attract in only one area, and this is important, and that's in temperament. You see, nature requires balance in all things. Yin and yang, active and passive. So nature requires that there be a balance in temperament. An extroverted person will be most compatible with an introverted person. 2 people who are equally introverted or extroverted will be most compatible. But here's a very simple test for relationships. Male or female, male, male, female, female. It's what we call the conversation test. In any conversation between 2 people who are temperamentally suited, there will be the entire period of time allocated for conversation will be full of easy conversation plus about 10% of easy silences. So that if each person will have an opportunity to talk all they want to talk, and each person will have an opportunity to listen all they want to listen, and there will be 10% of comfortable silences. Now, you may have a person who gets all their talking done in 30% of the time. And you may have another person who gets all their talking done in 60% of the time with that 10% gap, and these people will be very compatible. However, where you have problems in relationships is you have people who only like to talk 30% on the one side and a person who only likes to talk 30% on the other side, so you have big gaps of uncomfortable silence where neither has anything to say. Or the other example is where you have two people, each of whom have to talk 70% of the time, so you have a big clash over airtime. There's always a clash over who's going to be able to speak the most, and you'll find that this relationship will be incompatible too. So opposites attract, but only in temperament. In all other essentials, similarities attract. And this brings us to number 3. Number 3, key to success in relationships, is commitment. Commitment is very important. And in order for a relationship to work, a person should have a total commitment to the relationship, which means 100%. And we'll talk about this a little bit later, but one of the most beautiful definitions of love in relationships that I ever read was from Dr. Scott Peck, where he said that love is the total commitment to the full development of the potential of the other. Love is your total commitment to the full development of the potential of the other person. And this, to me, lays to rest all the arguments over male, female, women's lib, and so on and so forth, because if a person truly loves another person, they want that person to develop their full potential as a human being, and they will do everything possible to make that possible. Commitment is really clear. I have a good friend named Charlie Jones who talks about divorce. He said the way to deal with divorce is very simple. He says never consider it. He said don't even think about it, don't talk about it, never even consider the possibility of divorce. He says murder, yes, but never divorce. Now, maybe that's a little bit stringent, but the key to a successful relationship is the depth of commitment that each person has. Most dangerous thing in a relationship is when people start thinking in terms of, well, if it doesn't work out, I can go somewhere else. If it doesn't work out, we can always get a divorce. Relationships like that almost invariably end in a divorce. Number 4, key to a successful relationship, is similar self-concepts attract. Similar self-concepts attract. Now this means when we talk about similar self-concepts, we talk about how much you like yourself, how much you value yourself. We talk about what you might call the happiness scale. The happiness scale means how happy are you on a scale of 1 to 10. That's the basic question. You will find that you will always be most compatible with a person who is just about as happy as you are. If ever you get involved in a relationship with a person who is unhappy, and you allow yourself to be deluded into believing that you're going to bring them up and they're going to be happy at your level because you're going to help them, you're entering into a fool's game, because most people who are unhappy are quite happy being unhappy, and they have no intention of changing. As a matter of fact, the unhappiest relationships I've ever seen in my life are when a generally happy, positive person gets involved with a negative person and tries to bring them up to their level, because it never works. So ask yourself this: how happy is the person that you're thinking about getting involved with? And understand that it is very rare, except by tremendous effort, that people change their level of happiness. This brings us to number 5. Key to success in relationships is liking. Now, liking, which has to do with respect, is more important than being in love, and more permanently satisfying. Because being in love, although it comes and goes, is a passing condition. Being in love is something that ebbs and flows. As a matter of fact, you can be furiously angry with your mate or with your spouse and still have an excellent relationship. And you can still never consider breaking up, as long as you like and respect them. But if the liking and the respecting goes out of a relationship, the being in love or the infatuation is never enough to hold it together. Now, here's a simple test with regard to liking. It's what I call the best friend test. The best friend test simply says that if you are ideally suited to your mate will be your best friend. That there will be nobody that you would rather spend time with. There will be nobody that you trust more. There will be nobody that you would be more open, honest, candid, and frank with. That your mate or your spouse will be your best friend. It's the simplest measure of all, because you cannot force being best friends. Best friends just happens naturally when everything is right. On the other hand, if you are in a situation where you could not tell your spouse or your mate a lot of the things that are important to you, where you talk to other people more than you talk to them, where you have a lot of secrets that you keep from them, or a lot of things that you keep inside yourself, then generally speaking, you are probably not involved with your best friend, and the prognosis for your relationship is not very good. Number 6, requirement for happiness in relationships is communications. Now, communications or communicating back and forth in a relationship is the elixir that keeps a relationship alive. Without it, a relationship dies. Without it, the relationship has no possibility, and good communications in a relationship not only require speaking and listening, not only require trying to understand, give and take, but they require time. And they require a high quality and a high quantity of time. Very important, quality and quantity of time. What my wife and I do on a regular basis is we will go on a trip. And sometimes we'll go on a trip to a place that takes 3 or 4 hours, and we'll leave the children with a housekeeper or someone else, and we will drive in that car, no radio, no tapes, for 3 or 4 hours and just talk. And we'll get some of the highest quality and quantity of talk and conversation. And so if you use that analogy, what you might call a car trip analogy, which is uninterrupted conversation with your spouse over an extended period of time, you'll find the most remarkable things will happen. But if you're not spending a high quality and quantity of time with your spouse or your mate, the relationship is going to suffer, and many relationships will die as a result. Now, 2 critical points with regard to this, from my point of view as a man. Number 1 is, remember that men are not mind readers. One of the hardest things for women to understand is that men are not mind readers. They do not know what women mean or what women want them to think half the time. And it is not fair for women to expect men to know what is bothering them or what they want or what they need. And number 2, remember this, that men are direct, women are indirect. What does this mean? Well, if a man and a woman are driving down the street and the woman is thirsty, she might say, as they pass a McDonald's, she might say, "Honey, are you thirsty?" And he'll say, "Nope," and keep on driving. What she was trying to say was that she was thirsty, why don't they stop? Now, the man, on the other hand, if he saw the McDonald's and was thirsty, he said, "I'm thirsty, let's stop." So women tend to be indirect, and they get really angry when men don't understand what they were trying to say. So one of the best things that you can do in communications is be a little bit more direct. Be a little bit more clear, a little bit more specific. Now, an important point with regard to men. According to a recent survey, a recent study, it shows that men are 95% more likely to interrupt a woman in a conversation than a woman is likely to interrupt a man. And one of the best things that you can do in a relationship, you men out there, is take time to listen to your spouses. One of the gentlemen who went through my seminar said the most valuable thing he got from this part on human relations was when you go home at night, before you, the man, the direct person, the extrovert, starts telling your woman all about everything that went on during the course of the day, ask her how her day has been. Ask her how her day has unfolded. What has happened to her? How are things going with her? Try doing that as a discipline, and you'll be literally astonished at what it will do for your relationship. And then listen without interruption. Listen and pause before replying. Listen and ask questions for clarification. Listen and give positive feedback. All right. Now let's talk about some of the problems in relationships. Problems in relationships. Number 1 problem in relationship, lack of commitment. Now, lack of commitment is amazingly common because we live in a society today where it is considered clever to protect yourself by not making too deep a commitment to anybody. So what people do is they often get involved in relationships, but they only get involved up to their toes. Lack of commitment is often expressed in a trading relationship. A trading relationship is a relationship where one says, you do your share and I'll do my share. You put in your amount, I'll put in my amount, and neither one of them wants to get in 100%. Neither one of them wants to run the risk of being rejected. So by both of them not running the risk of being rejected, they both end up being rejected. And the key to resolving this, as I said before, is for each individually to make a 100% commitment to this relationship and say that no matter what happens, I will never leave this relationship. Make that decision to get in. Either get in or get out. Now, if you feel that you can't make the commitment, that will tell you something that's very important for you to know. If your spouse feels that he or she can't make the commitment, or mate feels that he or she can't make the commitment, that will tell them something too. But in either case, either get in or get out. And it will relieve an enormous amount of tension and stress in a relationship. Now, number 2 is trying to change the other, or expecting the other to change. You see, when we try to change another person, you know what we're saying? We're saying, in effect, that you're not good enough the way you are. You don't come up to my standards. How many times do people enter into marriages with one or the other saying, well, I'll change him or her as time goes on. They'll shape up more into the model that I desire or I approve of. Whenever you try to change another person, and why do we try to change another person? We keep disapproving of the person they are and the things that they do. We keep asking them to be different. We want them to be more of this or less of that. Now, that great American philosopher, Flip Wilson, had a wonderful expression which he used to cover this. And it's simply this. He says, what you seize is what you get. Don't enter into a relationship with the intention of changing the other person. Because what you seize is what you get. People don't change unless they intensely desire to change and are willing to practice some of the things we talked about in this seminar. However, if you just stop trying to change the other person and accept them unconditionally, with unconditional love, acceptance, and approval, often they will bend over backwards to change for you. But there's something within every human being that resists being changed by another person. Number 3 cause of problems or in relationships is jealousy. Now, jealousy has to do with the fear of failure. Where does jealousy come from? It comes from deep down inside. We don't feel that we're good enough. It comes from this old feeling of low self-esteem. I'm not good enough. This is something, by the way, that is rooted in our inferiority complex. Alfred Adler, the great psychologist, the disciple of Freud, said that the natural human condition is that of feeling inferior. The reason for that is because we grow up as children in a world of giants where we are made to feel inferior because we're so small. And as adults, we are continually struggling against this inferiority complex. This feeling that I'm not good enough leads to feelings of jealousy. The feeling is that that other person could never love me unconditionally. Therefore, I'm not safe. I'm not okay in this relationship. And the way that you get over this feeling of jealousy is work on your own self-concept and say over and over again, I like myself. I like myself, or I love myself. Because the more you boost your own self-esteem, remember there's an inverse relationship between these fears and how much you like yourself. The more you like yourself, the more your self-esteem goes up, the more your fears of jealousy, fears of rejection, fears of loss of love, and so on go down. So be alert to jealousy, and remember, though, it has nothing to do with the other person. It has only to do with the person experiencing it. And I'll say one more thing, is that it is not clever to make somebody feel jealous. It is not smart. It is not clever. It is not fashionable. It is just an unkind and cruel thing to do, especially if it is successful. Now, number 4 is self-pity. Where does self-pity come from? Well, there's several sources. Almost invariably, self-pity comes from having had a parent who was very good at self-pity. So what we did is we imitated the parent. As we grow up, we find opportunities to experience self-pity ourselves. Self-pity is also rooted in low self-esteem. It's not liking ourselves very much. Now, what is the solution for self-pity? Very simply this, is get busy. Get busy. People who are busy, people who are working on something that's important, people who have a worthwhile purpose in life, do not experience self-pity. It is only people who are going around in circles, drifting, waiting for someone else, and so on. So you can overcome self-pity simply by working on your self-concept and set some goals. Set clear, specific goals and get going on them. Remember the law of substitution. It says you can't feel sorry for yourself. You can't even feel jealous. You can't even feel angry if you're busy working on goals that are important to you. The conscious mind can only hold one thought at a time, positive or negative. And then we come to number 6. Number 6 is a major reason which sort of summarizes everything that we've talked about up to now as a major problem in relationships, and it is called incompatibility. Incompatibility means that you and the other person are not compatible. Now, this is very, very hard for us to accept because of fears of rejection and failure. We often stay in relationships long past the point where it's clear that we no longer have anything in common. And we do that for a variety of different reasons. One, we do that because we don't want people to think that we have failed. Another reason that we do it is that it's our comfort zone and we don't want to go through all the difficulty of separating. But what happens is this. When two people meet, they're like two dinner plates. And what they have is they have areas where they're separate. Here's the man, here's the woman. They have areas where they're separate and different, and they have areas that they have in common. Now, as a relationship develops, sometimes these areas grow. And so when they finally get married, they find that they have an enormous amount in common, And sometimes they have areas out here that they have which are separate. As the French say, vive la différence. Or, long live the difference between men and women. However, especially in our 20s, as we grow and evolve and change rapidly, what can happen is that we can grow apart. And we can reach the point where the man and the woman now have a great gap between them. They have very little in common. How can you tell when incompatibility is set into a relationship? Number one, the first thing that goes is the laughter. Is people stop laughing together. And the second thing that goes is the friendship. Is they don't look upon themselves as friends anymore. They look upon themselves as sort of people that are forced together. Now, if incompatibility is set into a relationship, the natural thing to do, the best thing to do, is to try to patch it up. Try to find some kind of a bridge. Try to put it back together, if you like. Try to bind it together, especially if there's children and a lot of other things involved. However, please understand this. If incompatibility has developed, and incompatibility is the rule, you have to go through dozens and dozens of men or members of the opposite sex before you ever find one that you can settle down with. If incompatibility has happened, accept it as a reality. Because if you do not, you're going to enter into the phenomena of denial. And the denial is going to cause tremendous stress and resistance and unhappiness. Number two is, remember that if it has happened, no one is guilty. Just because you are no longer compatible with the other person doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the other person, and it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It means that just incompatibility has set in. Remember, it just happens. It's like the rain. When it rains, nobody is guilty. It just happens. It is the most common phenomena in relationships, is incompatibility. And one final point with incompatibility is this. In my experience, I find the major reason why people stay in relationships that they're no longer happy in, that there's no love, there's no music, there's no laughter, there's no future to the relationship, is because of what others might say. It's because of what others might say. And this is really amazing to me, because whenever I speak to people, and I've been in the same situation, I've never been through a marriage that didn't work out, but I was a bachelor for 35 years, and so I've been through relationships that didn't work out, and I've been amazed at how much social pressure there is created in our own minds to stay in a relationship that we don't enjoy because we think others will disapprove of us. We think that others will be upset. We think that others will be saddened. And the fact of the matter is, as everybody eventually finds out, is that nobody cares as much about your relationship as you do, and if you sacrifice your peace of mind for what you think others might say, you will never, never be happy. Incompatibility is a reality. If you cannot repair it, if you cannot overcome it, then deal with it honestly, deal with it graciously, face it in a straightforward way, deal with it in a respectful, dignified way, and find some way to resolve the relationship so that it doesn't hurt anybody more than it has to. Remember this with regard to loving relationships, that your objective, your responsibility is to set joy and fulfillment in your relationships as your minimum standard. Set peace of mind, happiness, joy, fulfillment, tranquility. Make your home and your loving relationship the crown jewel of your emotional life, and settle for nothing less. Keep working at it, keep striving, keep chopping, keep changing, do whatever is necessary, but you owe it to yourself, you owe it to your life, you owe it to your character, your integrity, your peace of mind, your health, and your future to settle for nothing less than a relationship that is a joy to be a part of.